So back for hour two. Do do diddly do diddly do. It's Post and Carpenter composers, right? Jim Rockford theme. And Jim Rockford thermos. So hour duh here, we kind of figured it would go this way. Battery time is looking okay, but we can't be quite sure. Digicam, HD, glorious high 8 down here. So where we left off was questioning how bad, how poor was the judgment of Mr. David Grohl in rather than respecting his own privacy and dignity by keeping his three of his four family members together with him. Instead, he sends them out to Vegas on a mission to perform a song of praise to Mr. David Geffen, certainly one of the more despised figures in show business ever. I mean, you might as well. I mean, he ranks with, I believe he outranks Louis B. Mayer and who's that guy Mannix that may have killed Superman. Fake suicide thingy, you know. But hard to find anyone other than business partner Steven Spielberg or junior business partner Katzenberg to say anything nice about David Geffen at any time in the last 20 years or so, you know. And in fact, long ridiculed, long despised, an infamous character to almost everyone except for, you know, national and Los Angeles County Democratic Party insiders who in many ways allowed him to select both Bill Clinton and Barack Obama as the Democratic nominee for the presidency of the United States. I'm not making that up. That's the way they see it. That's the way a conventional Democratic Party history reads. David Geffen personally got the momentum going, tipped the scales in favor of both Bill Clinton in '92 and then in 2008 for Mr. Barack Obama by deselecting Hillary Clinton. And how did he deselect her? With an op-ed that said, gee, Hillary Clinton, Bill Clinton, can we really trust them? Answer, of course not, but can hardly trust that person's judgment any more substantially. And then the widow broke her silence days later, or rather, not days later, rather, but the widow maintained her silence for over 2 months. June 8th is the date. Newsweek, June 8th. Taylor Hawkins' widow has publicly broken her silence on the Foo Fighters drummer's death more than 2 months after he passed away. Allison Hawkins, who married the musician in 2005, shared a statement on her late husband's Twitter account as it was announced that his bandmates are planning 2 tribute shows in September. Quote, my deepest thanks and admiration go out to the global Foo Fighters community.
It's his hair.
Ellipses.
Well, yes. The fact that
As Taylor's wife, on behalf of our children, I want to share how much you meant to him and how dedicated he was to knocking your socks off during every performance. Taylor was honored to be a part of the Foo Fighters and valued his dream role in the band every minute of his 25 years with them. We consider every band member and the extended Foo Fighters team our family. Taylor's endearing spirit and deep love of music will live on forever through the collaborations he so enjoyed having with other musicians and the catalog of songs he contributed to and created. In celebration of his life, it is now up to all of us who loved us most to honor Taylor's legacy and the music he gave us. And so this was simultaneous with a Twitter post or other press release by Foo Fighters. I believe it was only a few words of posted information and a poster mock-up for our dear friend, our badass bandmate, our beloved brother, the Foo Fighters and the Hawkins family bring you the Taylor Hawkins tribute concerts. And so this is a preliminary release of those who were presumed to be obligated to appear for these concerts. That is, they more or less had quite a few people, big names, including, I believe, initially also, including Paul McCartney, to appear at least once in these tribute concerts, which involved, in London, 90,000 people, not truly a capacity crowd. They can fill up slightly over 100,000, apparently, at Wembley Stadium, but 90,000 suckers paying big dollars to attend this tribute concert and see old Sir Paul croon out a couple of tunes, and the other bands as well. Only attracted 17, the capacity at the Kia Forum, which was just a few days ago, September 27th. I think that was 8 days ago. 17,500 at the Kia Forum. I didn't see the word sold out there, but obviously they attracted a much smaller crowd at that time. One wonders if the LA crowd wasn't simply more show business savvy than the consumers of this product in London. In any case, the London presentation began this way with Mr. Grohl on stage. I believe these would have been the first words that he spoke publicly about Mr. Taylor Hawkins' demise. So tonight we've gathered with family and closest friends. And again, this is like 5 months after his death. So tonight we've gathered with family and his closest friends, his musical heroes and greatest inspirations, to bring you a gigantic fucking night for a gigantic fucking person. So sing and dance and laugh and cry and fucking scream and make some fucking noise so he can hear us right now. 'Cause you know what? It's going to be a long fucking night, right? Are you ready? Are you ready? Are you fucking ready? So I counted carefully twice, and that's 6 fucks. Initial statement about the demise of Mr. Hawkins, his closest friend in the world, according to him. In his book released last year, he describes Hawkins as, I believe the term was, my brother from another mother and my partner in crime. Wonder what precisely that means. I mean, in the context of today. And, the concerts were odd as they could be. The London program, which was about 6 hours long, as was the LA presentation, 6 hours long. Began with Grohl's introduction and then went into a presentation by some people who I think had no connection to Nirvana whatsoever. I'm not sure of their connection with the Foo Fighters, but undoubtedly there was some professional relationship. And this would be Liam Gallagher, formerly of Oasis, essentially the leader of Oasis. I believe is their principal songwriter, not his brother. And Liam Gallagher did Rock and Roll Star. These guys used to be ironic. I believe they showed up for the Grammys or the VMAs once, and were taking a beverage and spitting it on the entertainment press and spitting it in the direction of entertainment executives. They had that punky rebellious thing going on for them for a while, the brothers Gallagher. That seems to have all been drained. They've made negative comments about Cobain and his, I'm not sure they used the word cowardice, but that was the gist of their comments, that Cobain couldn't handle life, etc. I don't believe they ever met the guy, but they were commenting, or at least one of the Gallaghers was commenting, I believe it was Liam, on the circumstances, and that was his assessment of Kurt Cobain. And yet, under startlingly similar circumstances, some drug-related suicide or whatever, deliberate overdose or whatever, Liam Gallagher shows up to sing Rock and Roll Star, and not ironically, and especially not ironically, the second song of the evening, a little thing called Live Forever. And Live Forever, I believe, was their biggest, in other words, their first big video hit in the United States. And it was not too bad. It was a spoof of an old film by Rogue and Camel. I believe Camel, co-director, is believed to have committed suicide in the early 70s because he couldn't get this classic film released in the United States. Rogue continued with an illustrious career. But this is the performance film. James Fox and Mick Jagger, with Fox, you may know if you're familiar with the film, actually upstaging Jagger, getting all the good laughs, you know. And so the Live Forever features one of the Gallagher brothers in this office behind a desk pushing a lamp forward toward the viewer. And this is obviously a spoof of the performance film, the beginning of the MTV style segment in the middle of this film, which I believe was filmed in 1968, but not released until 3 or 4 years later. So good was it. So afraid was the American film industry of it, because it was a great depiction of gangsters prior to the Godfather films. You can see how that would knock the film industry for a loop there. And so Harry Flowers pushes the lamp toward the viewer. Gallagher does the same thing in the film. And he's surrounded by these photographic portraits of rock and roll stars, demised rock and roll stars. Mark Bolan is there. And, gosh, if they had a Lennon in there, it was done pretty quickly. But the principal people who are featured are, oddly, the Seattle stars, Jimi Hendrix and Kurt Cobain, showing their photographs on this spoofy Harry Flowers wall, as if he's like a record industry guy and he owns these people. But hey, that's the price you pay in rock and roll if you want to live forever. Always enjoyed that video. But this performance in London on in the first week of September this year certainly drains it of all of its meaning for today's viewer, doesn't it? And so, oddly enough, in both of these concerts, they only performed 3 Taylor Hawkins compositions in London and only 2 Taylor Hawkins compositions in Los Angeles. And this is for the Taylor Hawkins tribute that goes on for 6 hours. They give Hawkins, 10 minutes or so. And the rest of it is an extremely indulgent, self-indulgent exercise by lots of other rock and roll stars taking advantage of the opportunity to get this global exposure. It was live streamed, the London concert was live streamed on Paramount Plus. CBS carried 1 hour of it by surprise. I wasn't expecting it. CBS carried 1 hour of cutouts of the concert at, 10 p.m. prime time, the day of the concert. And their website described it as this global event for rock superstar, words to that effect, Taylor Hawkins. McCartney performed with Chrissie Hynde, a song that he's never performed before, he said, "Oh Darling," from the Beatles' Abbey Road melody, a melody that I think Lennon said he really despised and didn't want on the record. It's all those snippets of songs that don't add up to anything. But the publicity said that McCartney was performing "Oh Darling" for the first time ever live. So strange, especially because then he gets on stage with the Foo Fighters and performs "Helter Skelter," a song that I believe, I saw this in the last couple of weeks, but I believe he rather pointedly said, "I don't think I'll ever be performing that one again," because of the discomfort it caused with the audience that he would predict would logically follow, given that this was so closely associated with the murder spree of the Charles Manson cult. And subsequently the term became even more famous or infamous because Bugliosi, the prosecutor in the case, named, I believe it's the best-selling crime paperback of all time, Helter Skelter. So there he's performing one with the Foo Fighters that he should not have performed out of matters of good taste. And this harmless thing, "Oh Darling," he hasn't performed ever since 1970 when it was recorded. How strange. Chrissie Hynde actually gets 4 tracks in the Los Angeles concert. That's strange. She's actually fallen out of favor with anyone who would view her as some sort of diehard feminist because of odd statements she made about, more or less, I'm paraphrasing here, but women inviting themselves, young women inviting themselves to experience sexual assault because they dress in such a way that they are arguably inviting these sexual assaults, including rape. The most anti-feminist thing that a woman could possibly ever say, and yet this is attributed in the last couple of years to Ms. Chrissie Hynde herself. And her comments were refuted on network television by an attorney whose name is Sherry Fuchs. Ooh. Muscle strain. Edit point. Refuted Ms. Hynde's very strange statement, refuted in a lengthy panel discussion by one Sherry Fuchs, I'm sorry, not Cherry Fuchs. My error. Jacqueline or Jackie Fuchs, who is known as Jackie Fox in the famous and infamous rock band The Runaways from the 1970s. And appropriately so. I mean, these are almost precisely the words that Ms. Hind uttered that have been attributed to police in thousands and thousands of cases. That attitude has been attributed to the police, that if some woman is dressing provocatively, then there's no case to press for sexual assault because obviously in one way or another the assault was invited by the attire or attitude of the female victim. So Joan Jett, who was a teenage member of the Runaways, gets on stage after David Grohl, just 8 days ago. Grohl gives a typical introduction. You all know that dude could make you fucking smile and dance and laugh and sing. You know, very generic. It's gonna be a long fucking night. And then Joan Jett gets on stage doing her character. I can't imagine she speaks this way in her real life voice, but you know, she comes across with that somewhat East Coast Rocky Stallone kind of cartoon delivery, but with all sincerity for the occasion. I'm not going to be able to get through this without crying. We're all here because we love Taylor Wright. He was such a beautiful soul as a person, as a human being. Like Dave said, he was such a music fan. He loved all kinds of stuff. I guess that makes me a bit of a snob, because he really loves all kinds of stuff, because he really loves everything, and I was honored that he was a fan of mine too, of my music. Woo goes the crowd. So I just want to say, thank you for having me. Thanks, Taylor, for being there with me. And we'll form a supergroup when we get up there, when I get there with you. So again, really precisely sculpted publicist-style statement from Ms. Joan Jett, referencing, of course, the Righteous Brothers from the 1970s, Rock and Roll Heaven, where all the rock stars who die prematurely go. You know the one I'm talking about. If there's a rock and roll heaven, then you know they got a hell of a band. I mean, I was a very small kid when this came out, and my reaction was like those kids in the Jeremy video, you know. I can't believe they really sang that. I can't really believe they're playing that on the radio. Rock and Roll Heaven. And Ms. Joan Jett is in a state of greater disrepute than ever in the last decade, especially in the last 5 years or so, because of statements by Jackie Fuchs. She was in the band, she was in the bass player, she was the bass player of the Runaways at age 16, when she was sexually assaulted, just definitely raped, according to many witnesses who visually saw this going on. And among the witnesses seeing her being raped by their manager, a Mr. Kim Fowley, were Joan Jett and Cherry Curry, Curry being the lead singer. This occurred in an Orange County hotel room, New Year's Eve, 1975. Huffington Post in 2015 did a fairly thorough examination of this, contacting apparently all living witnesses, including a Miss Carrie Crome, who claims also to have been assaulted by the deceased, now deceased Kim Fowley, their manager. And she claimed that Joan Jett and Cherry Curry, themselves teenagers, not only witnessed it, but were snickering as it went on. And this controversy has persisted for over a decade. Cherry Curry did a memoir. Perhaps it was never published, I'm not sure. But she recast this criminal incident into one in which the victim encouraged her own rape, and it was understood when this memoir was either published or circulated in 2010 that a film was to be based on the Cherry Curry memoir. Especially of concern was this chapter called Kim Fowley's Sex Education Class, and this was the part of the memoir where she describes a fictional victim standing in for Jackie Fuchs or Jackie Fox, recasting the whole thing in a sense where the victim was blamed. And Ms. Jacqueline Fox, Jackie Fuchs, or Jacqueline Fuchs, subsequently went to law school. She was known for being very intelligent and already admitted to UCLA at the time that she made the unwise choice to join the Runaways rock band as, a founding member. And she subsequently went to Harvard Law, where she was a classmate of Barack Obama. So she's the one leading the charge against perceiving the whole Joan Jett career as some sort of unending spasm of feminist righteousness, because obviously there are troubling aspects to the Joan Jett career. So it's not really our intention here to go over that drama pointlessly. Are you seeing the point? The point is, was Taylor Hawkins somehow screwed over by those closest to him? Could they have played a role in his violent demise or drug-induced demise without official answers and without any explanation coming forth from the persons most closely involved, that is his Four Seasons Hotel roommates, the collective body of the Foo Fighters? It's not really understood at all what went on there. And of course, with a tiny bit of imagination, you can see the possibility that some sort of violent assault resulting in Mr. Hawkins' demise is a very genuine possibility. So, it's like singing Help Me, the love song to David Geffen. It's these people getting right in your face with the worst sort of selection of choices in music and statements, to just get in your face and say, oh, well, so what if Joan Jett participated passively or otherwise in a rape of a teenager so many years ago? We'll give her the starring role right out there in front of this worldwide audience, because who's gonna stop us? And the whole presentation rather discomfortingly involved children, and this has been something that David Grohl has engaged in throughout his career. Big Me, the first or second of his big hit video smashes to introduce his new band, Foo Fighters, in 1995. You may remember it's a Mentos commercial takeoff, and David Grohl makes all these goofy smiles at the camera while he's holding up the Futos spoof Mentos mints. And then there's another storyline where some tiny kid, I'd say about age 11, is trying to get into the Foo Fighters concert for free, and a big old bouncer says, musicians only. So the kid goes away, gets a guitar and a headband, slips in the stage door, and joins the Foo Fighters on stage, you know, along with lead singer Dave Grohl with his really cute little pigtails on either side, braided pigtails. And so the London concert featured a 12-year-old Nandi Bushell, who has had some sort of concert appearance with the Foo Fighters previously, as a drummer. And for the big climax of the whole show in London and also in Los Angeles, they featured Oliver Shane Hawkins, Taylor Hawkins' only son, appearing to do a rendition of My Hero, authored by David Grohl rather famously, which may or may not be a tribute to Kurt Cobain. He's had it both ways for a long time. One of the sound technicians came out with a statement a couple of years ago, just a couple of years ago, that David Grohl told him personally that this song is about Kurt Cobain. And Grohl gave a lengthy explanation on the Howard Stern show about this. Stern says, "It's no secret that the song Hero is about Kurt Cobain, loosely based on Kurt Cobain, right?" David Grohl winces. "Nah, it's more about just heroes that are ordinary. It's like everyday, ordinary, working class hero kind of crap." Robin, the Stern co-host, "I think it's about Kurt Cobain, and you found out that your hero was just an ordinary guy and he couldn't handle it." Stern, "I see a whole different thing. I think it's about your hero, guys who you can't believe. A guy you can't believe is your hero because eventually they disappoint you. It's guys who should have been your hero and weren't." And that's a very strange aspect to the whole thing. From the moment that anybody first heard this song off of the second Foo Fighters LP, the question had to occur to your mind, wait, is that the correct use of the word ordinary? Because you remember the refrain is, "There goes my hero," and over and over and over again, "He's ordinary, he's ordinary." And you hear that and you see, and you think, wait, maybe you should have turned that into, "He's ordinary and also extraordinary," because I mean, I even consulted the Oxford Dictionary of American English in the last few days, and there are 6 or 7 definitions of ordinary, which are all very similar, and none of them involves a dual interpretation, meaning ordinary on the surface and extraordinary on some other level. That's not what the word means. In fact, the only use I can think of that incorrect employment of ordinary is at the end of a really classic 1957 film, A Face in the Crowd, by I think Elia Kazan, director, and starring Andy Griffith. There's a banner right toward the end of it when you're really starting to doubt the integrity of this guitar picker and singer and bullshit artist, Lonesome Rhodes. And the banner says something almost exactly like, "There's nothing as extraordinary as the ordinary beliefs of the ordinary man." But actually that employment of the ordinary word adds up, because at least they stuck extraordinary in the banner. But you know, this is a very perceptive political satire about the possibility of, populist, haters of the general public, haters of democracy rising up in the form of pop stars like Mr. Lonesome Road. Really a brilliant performance by Andy Griffith. It's generally agreed. And they get it right, and Grohl got it wrong. And this thing is heavy radio play. It's been played, continuously for like more than 25 years. This actually predates Taylor Hawkins joining the band. He's ordinary. He's ordinary. And this is not something he came up with without a mature conception. One of the irritating things I think that he did to Cobain was he would introduce on at least one occasion, there's a European documentary where Grohl and Cobain are being interviewed, and Cobain was sometimes slow to respond because he didn't want to be overly eager to respond. He wanted to, knock it out of the park in his own inimitable way. And so someone asks him if they could describe what really the appeal of Nirvana music is. And Grohl rings in with, well, the songs, they're almost like kids' songs, they're so simple, simple. And then in this European documentary, was actually released during Cobain's lifetime, they immediately, in the version I have, they immediately cut to Love Buzz. Dun, 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 dun. Most guitar players who principally play rhythm in a 3-piece or 4-piece band don't do a hook like that. And there's nothing simple or ordinary about the conception of the tune. The version of Love Buzz by Shocking Blue, as performed by Kurt Cobain and Nirvana, it was the first single. It's really such a great rendition, and it seems like the documentarians from Europe were showing that there was some friction in the band. Friction in the band based on the idea that Cobain doesn't jump right in with promotional language about how great his conception of music is, and then his bandmate, the drummer, the 5th or 6th drummer in the band, rings in with, well, the appeal is their simplicity. What, he doesn't understand what simple means? He doesn't understand what ordinary means? It's a very pointed effort to dig at Cobain for not being as sophisticated as, Joe Pass. That's what the guitarists say. He's no Joe Pass, but he's no Yingwei. He's no Joe Pass, but he is Kurt Cobain, and doing a fine and non-simple job of it, don't you agree? So, Taylor Hawkins' only son, Oliver Shane Hawkins, with a strange haircut and really knocking it out very energetically, not reluctant to be there at all, enjoying every moment of it to all appearances. A little bit on the disturbing side. Disturbing in so many ways, just the way so much of this material is disturbing. Just inappropriate. I mean, they had the two remaining members of Rush, Mr. Lifeson and Mr. Weinrib, performing Working Man, one of their greatest hits. Okay, I've always thought the song was well done in its recording. It's a radio hit that's been around for like 40 years non-stop. Some of these radio stations that play the hard rock format, they play it like every day, right? I mean, on average, probably once a day. But Taylor Hawkins died in his workplace, right? Mr. Weinrib doesn't understand the association between greed and murder. Mr. Weinrib doesn't understand that when millions of dollars are at stake, murder may result. Well, look at the first or second paragraph in his biography, and you'll understand that Mr. Weinrib should be able to get his mind around this concept. And if Taylor Hawkins died at his workplace, the Four Seasons Medina Hotel in Bogota, surrounded by his workmates and his boss, the CEO of the Foo Fighters. CEO and probably only shareholder. I've never heard of shares being issued to other band members the way that they were in Nirvana. Then they should have used a better judgment than to appear playing Working Man. And at the end of this CBS presentation, the 1 hour presentation, you get the final send-off of hugs, etc., from the bandmates with each other and the others gathered. And the most bizarre and discomforting moment came with, the arm around Oliver Shane Hawkins' neck by David Grohl in a tight close-up shot, right? And then it's a combination of hair mussing and I believe also noogies delivered to Mr. Oliver Shane Hawkins' skull by Mr. David Grohl. Weird, familiar. Taylor Hawkins and David Grohl had the most gropey, intimate kind of physical relationship, which is obviously dictated by Grohl himself. It wasn't dictated by Hawkins, and it was enough to make, I'm sure, many people uncomfortable. I mean, Taylor Hawkins and Grohl, what was that all about? I certainly hope there wasn't any quid pro quo action going on in the workplaces of the Foo Fighters. But Hawkins played along with all that, both the senior Mr. Hawkins and also his son Oliver Shane Hawkins. But viewing it, I had the reaction perhaps many had at that time, which was, why is this so Shakespearean? Why am I getting a Shakespearean buzz off of this? And it only took a millisecond or two for me to realize, so wise, so young, they say, do never live long. So wise, so young, they say, never do live long. Do never live long. And of course, this is Richard III, Act 3, Scene 1, and the murder of the young princes. Edward says about his other uncles murdered, God keep me from false friends, but they were none. I fear no uncles dead. Ricky number 3, nor none that live I hope. Young Edward, and if they live, I hope I need not fear. Edward, what say you, uncle? Richard replies, without characters, fame lives long. So wise, so young, they say, do never live long. So long before Billy Joel struck upon this formula, Shakespeare had it down about 400 years earlier. Only the good die young. And his meaning was very different. But, if Taylor Hawkins was his brother from another mother, and he's being welcomed into this brotherhood of Foo, I think everyone is interpreting this as he will join the band someday soon. I mean, he's 16. I believe David Grohl was touring Europe with a band when he was 16 or 17, that being the Scream band. with the endorsement of his school teacher mom. Young Oliver Hawkins, Shane Hawkins, could join the band tomorrow. Perhaps he already has. But, you know, where's the concern about workplace safety? Not among his uncles in the Rush Band. Not among CIA spawn Stuart Copeland. His daddy, Miles Copeland, was a founding member of that big band we all know as the CI-fucking-A, in it before it was actually formed in the OSS or some other base operation for CIA. And here's what Copeland told CBS about being in London and hearing a sound check with Shane Hawkins. To see young Shane Hawkins on the drums, I started crying. And he's got such power, enthusiasm. He's got his brother's stance, musical language. That was really emotional. To see young Shane up there. So here you got this guy who's literally the immediate descendant, the son of Miles Copeland, a founding member of the CIA, a founding official of the CIA, that big CIA-fucking-A band. Endorsing all of this is just totally swell and copacetic, you know. Essentially, Stuart Copeland is partially British. I believe he was born in Lebanon, and he may have had some years in Old Virginia too. But, you know, he's best known as the drummer for The Police, whose other members were as English as you can be. Of course, he speaks essentially with an American accent, but in all those private schools he attended as CIA scion Stuart Copeland, they must have learned him up on some Shakespeare somewhere. Why didn't it occur to Mr. Stuart Copeland that this thing was just a bit too Richard III for any of us to tolerate without question? Anyway, I'll get just a little bit autobiographical here and say, yeah, the CI-fucking-A. I was working for the CI-fucking-A when I was a kid. I didn't even know it. The first job I had delivering newspapers, Aurora Beacon News, which, not known to me at the time, which was right around 1977, was prominently featured in an article on the cover of Rolling Stone magazine by Carl Bernstein. Yes, that Carl Bernstein. 25,000 word journalism piece on the CIA in the American media. And among those pointed out as being extremely prominent in this situation, post-church committee, you know, in the mid-70s, was an organization called Copley News Service, or the Copley Newspapers. And my first job, which I believe I had for, count 'em, 2 weeks, was delivering the Aurora Beacon News, Aurora, Illinois' oldest business, founded in 1843, which this James Copley guy inherited the fortune as the adopted son of the original founder, who began it in Illinois, and then he became an extreme right-winger and played into the Nixon aspirations of having the domestic and foreign press informing on hippies, informing on black activists, and in the case of Copley, and then also planting a lot of alleged supposed journalists in Latin America to support dictatorships there. So a very dirty player in the world of fake media, reporters who are actually employed by CIA. And so I delivered their newspaper for about 2 weeks. Actually did collections in the Lake Street projects. My first job in journalism, on the distribution side, as I may have mentioned before. And then I seamlessly went into the same territory, Lake Street projects, etc., for the Tribune, Sun-Times, and Wall Street Journal. Did that for over 2 years. My first long-standing employment, actually my only long-standing actual employment in journalism, for which I was paid about 50 cents an hour at a time when the minimum wage was up around $2.80. So paid a mere fraction, and as I say, unknowingly working for the CIA, which, looking back on it, I don't appreciate. River Phoenix, the actor who died just before Cobain, he was working for the CIA since the day he was born, because he was born into a cult. The Children of God cult. And, a typical interpretation, an outstanding and persistent interpretation of his death in Johnny Depp's nightclub is that it had something to do with guitarist John Frusciante of the Red Hot Chili Peppers. And what do you know? Chad Smith of the Red Hot Chili Peppers is playing a very prominent role in the Taylor Hawkins drama that has been forthcoming in the last 6 months, being one of 2 very prominent rock drummers. It's both he and Matt Cameron of Pearl Jam, coming forward with claims that we'll detail in the next hour about how Taylor Hawkins was just in an extreme state of conflict with David Grohl and the Foo Fighters, that somehow the situation of heavy touring is something that he could not handle at all at this point, and that he wanted a really serious winding down of this sort of heavy touring at age 50. Even though the claim is that he was taking good care of himself, leading a very healthy lifestyle as Hawkins said in 2021 to Rolling Stone. And yet David Grohl was persisting in trying to get them back up to a level of 60 giant performances or so per year. And the really odd thing about this, which again we'll go into this in the next hour in detail, is that this is not really published in Rolling Stone magazine in paper. It actually apparently persists only online, which means I've got a printout of it, but someday it will disappear, and within days of its publication, it was already being mollified and transmogrified into the actual opposite of the intention of the initial intentional meaning by Mr. Smith and Mr. Cameron, which was they both used the word apology and said words to the effect that their words were taken out of context, and that essentially they were sort of deceived by the Rolling Stone. I don't believe the word deceived was used, but out of context was used. And so in essence, they put forward this profound drama between Grohl and Hawkins, and then within a couple of days completely reversed it and said more or less that they were ashamed to be a part of this and that they were essentially retracting it. Meaning, you know, for the next 100 years or whatever, if people want to say that Hawkins was crushed by the workload that David Grohl was putting on him, they could do that. Or they could, more commonly, I think will be the case, just side with the wannabe billionaire David Grohl and say that, in fact, these scurrilous rumors were out there by an anonymous source and 3 named sources close to Hawkins about his being overworked. But the 2 drummers involved, of course, retracted such statements, which undoubtedly Rolling Stone captured on audio to protect themselves. So we're at the 56-minute mark, more or less. We're going to get into David Grohl's extremist right-wing father, Reagan Revolution member, who's pictured here with Ron and Nancy. We'll bring in a better photo for you. But some sort of insider in the Reagan Revolution. I don't think he ever revealed that to Cobain. This only came out in the last couple of years. And so on the subject of David Grohl not being the person that you believe he presents himself to be, David Grohl is not who you believe he is. We know what you have been doing, and you either stop or we will break your hands and beat you to death. You're in too deep. You don't know shit. The truth is not for you to know. Get hurt. Ransom style note with David Grohl's face prominently displayed in the signature position, mailed to me by his art director on December 9th, 1996. So we'll get into David Grohl's right-wing extremist father's background and the ransom note, and golly, maybe a little bit more CIA, FBI, 9/11 type stuff. KCWM meets 9/11, right? That's actually a story that we're going to tell you about. As to quote Mr. Grohl's non-ironic words in introducing the Los Angeles concert, and you know, we started working together putting these shows a long, long time ago. A long, long time ago? The band's been around 27 years. How long ago were you planning this? So why so young, they say. Do never live long. So join us for part 3, which we'll record another day. 6:43 p.m., October 4th, 2022.